Yesterday, I made a video where I talked about the exclusives that came out on the PlayStation platform in 2021, and I compared that to the Xbox exclusives that came out exclusively on Xbox in 2021. Well, the comment section was so great and just had some awesome responses and a few corrections even that I wanted to address in this video. So let's go over what people were talking about. And just real quick, I was super happy to see that this really sparked a lot of conversation. So let's continue talking about the topic. So as we dive in a little bit more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for more. So first up, I think I should clarify a few things. The list was made with the goal of saying, okay, these games can only be played on PlayStation and anywhere else, but not on Xbox. And these Xbox games can only be played on Xbox and anywhere else, but not on PlayStation. So that was sort of my dividing thing. And a lot of people were like, well, I don't understand your qualifications for this list. I should have done a better job at clarifying that in the beginning. And there were a few mistakes. So community consensus kind of came to a few determinations. Genshin Impact came out in 2020. So that one's off the list. That was already out on PS4 in 2020. So I took that one off. The medium is now on both. So while it was a timed exclusive, it's on both currently, and you can play it on both currently. So let's just get rid of that one also. Flight Simulator was technically a re-release. So I'll label it a re-release on the list. Song of Iron, a game that came out on PC, is now on Xbox. And yeah, so that's sort of the start of the conversation. Now, secondarily, people were like, well, clearly you didn't include 2020 because PlayStation would have won. Yeah, and I've been very critical of Xbox for not having console exclusives that first launch year. It was really detrimental. They were setting up their services, and I've made a bunch of videos about that you can go watch if you choose to. So the goal of making the video is taking a snapshot in time and looking at 2020 games that are available on the Xbox platform and the PlayStation platform and talking about the narrative that Xbox has no games. Now, some people, Cosmos Infinity pointed out, if it's on PC, Xbox One, or PS4, it's not an exclusive, nor are timed exclusives. Let me revise your list. So let's look at what he's done. Basically, he says something I fundamentally disagree with. He says that any game that also comes out on PC does not count as an exclusive. Okay. So his PlayStation exclusive list amounts to Destruction All-Stars, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Returnal. Now, Destruction All-Stars has a 62 on Metacritic, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart has an 88, and Returnal has an 85. There's no denying that Returnal, again, a game that is probably my game of the year, or at least one of them, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart being amazing at an 88 on Metacritic, there's no denying that those games are great. Now, my fundamental disagreement is with the fact that stuff that also comes out on PC should not be counted. I don't agree with that. I'll give you the timed exclusivity thing, but I won't give you the fact that they came out on PC because that's just ridiculous. It's 2021. It's not 1994 anymore. Things are going to come out on PC. It is a huge market that no company should be ignoring. Even PlayStation's not ignoring it. So let's talk about the Xbox exclusives that came out on PC. Now, a lot of people were confused by Phantasy Star Online 2 being included on my list. I'm talking about New Genesis. It was a massive rework of that game, and it is an Xbox exclusive, and yes, it's also on PC. So that's one of the games that I'll choose to include. The Ascent didn't score that well on Metacritic. It has a 68, but I hear a lot of fans who play it enjoy it. And then games that still have to prove themselves, and I talked about this in the original video, include Forza Horizon 5, which I have to imagine will be at least as good as Forza Horizon 4. I'll be surprised if they somehow manage to completely destroy the Forza franchise with the 5th entry. I will be quite surprised. Halo Infinite, which I have played the multiplayer beta of, and I had a blast. There's also Crossfire X and Scorn. Now, the reason I didn't include Crossfire X or Scorn were because they don't have concrete 2021 release dates, and with everything slipping to 2022, that's why they weren't on the list. I have a lot of confidence about Crossfire X, Halo Infinite, Forza 5, but those games aren't out yet. So when you're talking about the PlayStation exclusives based on this sort of odd timed exclusivity thing, Cosmos of Infinity points out that PlayStation only has 3 games. Well, that's sort of a problematic argument, because if you're touting the fact that your preferred console only had 3 titles that were exclusive for a whole year, and one of them weren't that great. So really you're bragging about 2 games. It's just sort of a weird conversation. It's a throwaway conversation, right? There's no meat to it. So it's just like, I don't get the point that he was trying to make. So let's go back to the revised list. So now with the community all having their feedback and pointing out games that I missed, I have added a few games to PlayStation, and I have added a bunch of games to Xbox, because a bunch of stuff is coming to the Xbox platform. So on the PlayStation side, a notable one that I missed was Oddworld Soulstorm, which is technically a timed exclusive. It will be coming to Xbox. I don't know when yet. Virtual Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown was another one that was noticed. It is re-released, and technically you can play Virtual Fighter 5 on the Xbox, but it is the original version of the game, not the updated version, the re-release version of the game, or the whatever. I don't know anything about that game, but it was one people wanted me to note. Ys IX and Marquette were also entries. So that brings the list to 25, with the notes up front, with having to remove Genshin Impact, for example. And actually Final Fantasy XIV had to be removed because that was available on the PlayStation 4, and it wasn't released in 2021. Final Fantasy XIV has been out for a long time. The expansion content it's on everything. It's sort of a weird game. So I took it off because a lot of people pointed out, well, Final Fantasy XIV is sort of a weird one to include. So, okay, whatever. I'll still keep Final Fantasy VII on there because there was a notable expansion, and like Ghost of Tsushima had an expansion. Death Stranding's getting an expansion. So whatever, we'll keep those on the list. So PlayStation, with sort of gray area, I'm giving PlayStation extra titles that are either re-releases or games that had expansions to get their list to 25 titles. And again, I'm not saying PlayStation games are bad. I'm just trying to dispel the narrative that Xbox has no exclusives or no games. So again, these are games that can only be played on one platform. So the 25 games that I've listed can only be played on the PlayStation 5 platform, but not on Xbox. And yes, it can be played on PC. I'm including those anyway. So it's just, people are really getting in the weeds about that. And on the Xbox side, I have 38 games currently listed, including 5 that people really pointed out. They might not have a concrete date yet, but they are currently slated for 2021. So even if I were to take off those 5, we're still at 33 confirmed 2021 titles for Xbox and 25 for PlayStation 5. So why am I making this follow-up video? Largely because it sparked a lot of conversation, right? And I'm glad that we're having these conversations, even if you're not agreeing with me or you're finding the list weird. What I'm trying to point out is it's dumb. It's not worth your time to sit there and say something like Xbox doesn't have games, and to turn on your blinders and just be like, there's no reason that anybody would ever buy an Xbox. I mean, like, that's just foolish. What? Of course there's reasons that people would buy an Xbox. It's a good value. You get more bang for your buck. Like I've made plenty of videos about that topic, but the goal of this one was to dispel the narrative that Xbox has nothing. Now, people pointed out, well, PlayStation has better titles, and I would actually agree with you 100%. PlayStation over the last few years has released some phenomenal games. A lot of people point to Last of Us 2. They point to Ghost of Tsushima. Death Stranding is a fan favorite. Ratchet and Clank. Returnal. I mean, I could keep going all day. Again, my goal is to take a snapshot of 2021 and where we're at. I took a note about this particular topic, actually. So I clarified what I was talking about was an exclusive. And the fact that people are touting like PlayStation games being great, you're absolutely right. PlayStation games are phenomenal. But to say that Xbox has nothing worth playing is a little, it's just incorrect. There are probably fewer overall AAA experiences that are comparable to Last of Us on the Xbox platform. I think that's pretty safe to say. I can't think of a Last of Us comparable title. I think the Gears story is probably the closest thing that gets to it. But if you're looking for emotionally evocative storytelling, you could look at something like The Lake, and there are other games that focus on storytelling that are on the Xbox platform. And these are sort of the conversations that I keep seeing happening. And the goal isn't to like rile anybody up. It's just sort of to sit here with you and have a conversation with you actually about it. Instead of doing like all the fanboy war nonsense, I kind of want to sit down and say, well, okay, what's going on here? Because I'm seeing 30 plus titles on Xbox and 25 on PlayStation. And it comes down to one thing, and that's about the quality of the games. And that is a conversation. And that is what Xbox is going to be addressing in 2022 and beyond. So what else did I put in my notes here just to make sure I didn't miss anything? Why not include the launch year? I'm trying to, again, take a snapshot in 2021 and look at where both consoles actually landed this year to say, hey, Xbox actually did quite well for playing catch up. And if all of those games that are TBD right now for 2021, they're going to kind of have to cram them all in near the end of the year, like October, November, December. That's it for 2021, right? I have to imagine a few of those are going to slip just off the top of my head. But if that's where we're at today, and PlayStation has great games and Xbox has great games also, or at least a few great games that definitely the community would argue for, then imagine how great it's going to be in 2022. When the Xbox platform has reasons for anybody to pick up an Xbox Series X and play, and PlayStation 5 continues with their cadence of great exclusives that will be drawing people to the PlayStation platform. And the fact that people brought up the issue of exclusivity and timed exclusive, like Kina's a timed exclusive, Oddworld's a timed exclusive. Yes, those will come to the PlayStation platform first, but eventually they will be everywhere. So when you start looking at the list of games, it's just sort of like, well, okay, a lot of the games released in 2021 for PlayStation ended up being re-releases or content updates, games that came out the previous year. So like Final Fantasy VII was a content update, Neo was a content update or re-release. What else we got? Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, and even Virtual Fighter 5. It's a re-release of something that was already out at one point. And on Xbox, the big criticism was, well, most of those games are bad. Well, okay. I mean, if that's your interpretation of all of these titles and you're not really into them, that's totally fine to do. Like, I don't think I'm going to go out and play Space Jam. Again, the conversation I'm trying to have and point out is that there are exclusives on the Xbox platform that make the Xbox platform attractive to a lot of people. And I haven't even included the third-party games for both platforms, like Psychonauts 2, for example, which, I mean, it's not Xbox exclusive, but it came out on both platforms. So it's sort of like bolsters that library of games that you could be playing on that particular console. So I'm not trying to stoke fanboy wars here. I'm trying to have a conversation about content exclusives. What does that mean? What does that actually look like when you all put it down on paper? And what are the different categories of games that are being released on these platforms? Well, one point that I did see in the comments that a lot of people pointed out was that a lot of the games came out on PC first, like potentially even in 2020, and then they were released on Xbox. And that's a fair point. I still included them as I like... Neo came out, didn't come out in 2021, but I included it on the list, right? So I was trying my best to be fair, and there's just more stuff. Now, I'm not saying there's not more Last of Us 2s on Xbox, right? But there is a lot of stuff on the Xbox platform to play. And then on the PlayStation platform, there's like a few really, really great titles this year. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, just looking at the list off the top of my head, Deathloop, Returnal, and Kena, I would say, are quite notable new releases. Those are the 4 new releases. And as you probably know, on the Xbox side, to deny Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis is massive. Like that, you're just being silly. Like Death's Door, a lot of people are touting as a Game of the Year contender. I'll skip Flight Simulator because people are touting it as a re-release, and I didn't include any of those on the PlayStation side. But then you got Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite, and I have a lot of confidence in Crossfire X and Bright Memory Infinite. So again, when people are like, Destin, how can you say Xbox is your platform exclusive? Like, I listed 7 games that I'm really excited about. And actually there's, well, okay, 6 of those I'm really excited about. I'm not really into Phantasy Star personally, but it is a very popular game. And if I were to list, when I look at these lists of stuff that I want to play on the PlayStation side, there's about 4, maybe 5 games that I'm really into that aren't re-releases. Sorry, let me count again. Ratchet and Clank, heck yeah. Fist, maybe. Anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent there. Deathloop, Returnal, Kena. So 5 over there, and then the games that I was talking about on Xbox. I'm really excited about Bright Memory Infinite, by the way. So anyway, it was just, the goal is sort of just to have a conversation with you and talk about that. And largely the point that people are trying to make is, well, PlayStation has great games. Where are they on Xbox? Well, they're starting to come this year, and there's going to be even more titles next year. And on PlayStation, they have an established base of great franchises, and those are going to continue in the future years. It's a really, really exciting time. The point of the video is just to sort of point out that Xbox has games. They're going to continue to have games. And I think if you're going to participate in those conversations, maybe it's time to sort of like look at actually what came out in 2021. I don't know. Just sort of my 2 cents. I'm kind of working through it myself, honestly. And that's why these are vlogs, right? I really appreciate everybody commenting. For the most part, the comment section was really, really nice. There were some people who were sort of mean, but whatever. Some people are just like that. Yeah, not trying to rally up, not trying to make you mad or anything, just trying to have a conversation because it's sort of fun to think about. Anyway, video ended up being way longer than I meant it to. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you like these sort of videos, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when they go live. If you would like to become a member or love to become a member, you can hit that membership button. Thank you so much to everybody who has become a member this far. I'm going to get out of here, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.